The War Council chamber stank of fear. Not human fear, theirs. 12 species gathered around the obsidian table, all powerful in their own corners of the galaxy, yet every face reflected the same truth: none of them would take the mission. The Haloran envoy hissed through needle-thin mandibles. The Black Rift is suicide. Entire fleets vanish. My kind will not waste warriors on hopelessness. The Kalari delegate, a shadowed being of shifting smoke, added, even the machines won't enter. That alone should terrify you. Silence pressed down like weight. The council had been convened to decide who would investigate the rift, an expanding void devouring stars along the Orion Spur. The rift wasn't just a hazard. It was growing, and soon it would consume inhabited systems. Whoever went in would likely not come back. One by one, they withdrew. Excuses dressed as logic. Too costly. Too dangerous. Too unknown. Then the door hissed open. Commander Elias Kael stepped in, wearing battered combat armor scarred from wars no alien remembered but every human carried like legend. His presence drew eyes not because he was extraordinary, but because he radiated something the others lacked: defiance that bordered on madness. Kael didn't bow. He didn't wait for permission. He simply dropped a datapad onto the table. Humanity accepts. The chamber erupted. You cannot! The Haloran envoy spat. Do you seek extinction? Kael's eyes were steel. Extinction? You think that frightens us? We were born staring at extinction. Ice ages, plagues, world wars, nuclear winters, we've rehearsed the end more times than you've imagined. A ripple of unease crossed the alien faces. Humanity had always been the unstable outlier, the underdog species clawing for survival where others had ancient stability. That volatility was exactly why the mission had been dangled before them. No one expected them to accept. No one except Kael. The council's presiding voice, Chancellor Vera of the Serity, leaned forward, her serpentine form glimmering under the chamber's dim lights. You understand what you volunteer for? No return. No guarantee the rift even allows communication. The very laws of physics collapse inside. Kael's jaw tightened. Then it sounds like home. ####. Earlier that day, the hangar of Earth's last orbital fortress groaned with activity. Marines loaded supplies, engineers cursed at overheating reactors, pilots argued over fuel allocations. Humanity wasn't sending a fleet. There was no fleet left to send. Just a single dreadnought retrofitted for suicide missions, the Resolute. Kael walked the deck inspecting his crew. Every face he passed reflected the same reckless conviction he carried. Men and women scarred by endless wars, people who had survived Earth's burning skies and risen from rubble to carve colonies among the stars. He stopped at Lieutenant Marave, his second in command, who was sealing a crate of shock lances. You think we're actually coming back? She asked without looking up. Kael smirked. Coming back? Mara, you've seen Earth lately. Half-drowned coastlines, half-scorched wastelands. Coming back's overrated. She gave him a sharp look, half annoyed, half amused. Then why volunteer? Kael's gaze hardened. Because if we don't, someone else decides what happens to us. I've had enough of that. That night, before the official council announcement, Kael received a private transmission. The hologram flickered to life, revealing Admiral Harker, the last surviving architect of Earth's Defense Command. His face was pale, his voice cracked but resolute. You know why we chose you, Kael, Harker said. Because I'm expendable, Kael answered flatly. Because you're willing, Harker corrected. Every other commander would hesitate. Hesitation is death. The rift, it's not just a void. We've intercepted fragments, signals. Something's inside. Something building. If it breaches the other side. Kael waited. Harker's words fell heavy, unspoken. Humanity might be the last line, not the first. Do you regret it? Harker asked. Kael's lips curved in a humorless smile. I regret nothing. Fear isn't in our vocabulary. Good, Harker said. Then make them remember who we are. Back in the council chamber, Arguments raged. You humans are reckless, the Kalari whispered, voice like smoke twisting through the air. Kael stood unmoving. His silence was heavier than shouting. Finally, he leaned forward, his voice cutting like a blade. You all call this mission impossible. That's why you lose. Humanity doesn't stop at impossible. We drag it by the throat until it gives way. You want to know why we're volunteering? He slammed his fist against the table. Because someone has to. And because when every other species refused, we asked the only question that mattered, is that it? The chamber fell into stunned quiet. Even Chancellor Vera did not speak. For the first time, they saw not a desperate species, but a dangerous one. Later, aboard the Resolute, Kael gathered his crew in the war room. A hologram of the Black Rift hovered above them, swirling with gravitational distortions, a wound in space itself. Kael scanned their faces, Mara Vey with her sharp eyes, Corporal Idris who never stopped grinning even in hellfire, Technician Arlen who'd once built plasma rifles from scrap during the siege of Titan. Broken people. Hardened people. His people. This is the part where most commanders give you speeches about duty, honor, sacrifice. Kael began. But you already know that. You've lived it. What you need to remember is simpler. We are not victims. We are not passengers. We are the knife that cuts paths where none exist. Idris chuckled darkly. So basically, we're insane. Kael grinned. The kind of insane that wins. As the crew dispersed, Mara lingered. You believe what you said in there? That we're the knife? Kael nodded once. We've always been. We just forgot. The galaxy doesn't fear us yet. But it will. Outside the viewport, the rift shimmered like a storm waiting to swallow them. Its edges pulsed with colors that didn't exist in natural spectra, bending reality into something hostile and hungry. For most, it was terror. For Kael, it was a promise. ### cliffhanger ending. The Resolute prepared for jump. The engines roared with barely contained fury, the hull shuddering under strain. Kael stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the rift's horizon. Commander, Mara said quietly. Final checks complete. Once we cross, we lose all comms. No one will hear us. Kael's voice was steady. Then we make sure the galaxy remembers us another way. The stars elongated into streaks as the jump drive ignited. The rift swallowed the ship whole. For one heartbeat, silence. Then every console on the bridge screamed alarms at once. A voice, distorted, alien, yet horribly familiar, crackled across the comms. Not from outside. From inside the rift. Welcome, humans. We've been waiting. The alarms refused to quiet. Red strobes pulsed across the Resolute's bridge, each flash painting the crew in hues of danger. Consoles spat streams of corrupted data, symbols no human language could decipher. Yet through the chaos, every ear fixated on the comms, on that voice. Welcome, humans. We've been waiting. Lieutenant Mara Vey's hands flew over her station. The signal is local. It's not bleeding through from outside, it's inside the rift, latching onto our systems. Kael didn't flinch. Patch it. The voice returned, clearer now. Smooth, resonant, with an undercurrent of something mechanical. You are bold. Bolder than those who turn back. That is why you were chosen. Chosen? Idris spat, half rising from his gunnery chair. We volunteered, you parasite. The comm crackled with a sound disturbingly close to laughter. You misunderstand. Long before you volunteered, long before your kind reached the stars, we marked you. Humanity carries echoes of us. That is why you survive where others fall. Kael motioned for silence, eyes narrowing. Who are you? We are the architects. The rift is not your enemy. It is our design. We built it to filter strength from weakness. Those who enter and cannot adapt are erased. Those who endure may inherit. Mara whispered. God help us, it's a crucible. Kael's stare remained locked on the display. The rift's distorted horizon twisted and bled into impossible geometries. You built this as a test. Correct, the voice replied. And now, humanity has stepped willingly into our proving ground. ###the rift. The Resolute shuddered as unseen forces tore at its hull. Space outside was no longer black. It was fluid, alive, colors shifting in patterns that resisted reason. Sensors read gravity fluctuating by the second, sometimes negative, sometimes crushing. Energy spikes lashed across the void like lightning with no storm. Technician Arlen cursed as sparks erupted from a console. We're holding for now, but engines are bleeding power like a gut-shot animal. If this keeps up, they'll hold. Kael cut in. Route auxiliary to the stabilizers. We're not turning back. Arlen met his gaze, swallowed hard, and obeyed. The rift wasn't just tearing at their ship, it clawed at their minds. Corporal Idris clenched his jaw, knuckles white on his controls. Anyone else, hearing whispers? Mara glanced at him sharply. Ignore it. Psychological interference. The rift wants us fractured. Idris forced a grin that didn't touch his eyes. Yeah? Well, it'll have to try harder. ###revelation. Kael called a war council in the strategy bay. A holographic projection of the rift churned above the table, the architect's voice still faintly echoing through the speakers, though no transmission source could be traced. They're not lying, Mara said grimly. Every species that's entered the rift and vanished, they weren't destroyed by chance. They were tested and failed. Arlen shook his head. If that's true, then why us? Why humanity? Kael answered without hesitation. Because we don't quit. That's the one thing we've proven time and time again. They're betting on it. Or mocking it, Mara countered. Idris leaned forward. Mockery or not, Commander, we're here. So what's the play? Kael's voice was iron. The same as always. Adapt, fight, win. If this rift is a crucible, then we burn hotter than anything inside it. #### first trial. The rift shifted. Sensors screamed as an object formed from the haze ahead. Not a planet. Not a ship. A structure, colossal, spires of obsidian twisting upward into shapes that defied architecture. Arlen's voice cracked. It wasn't there a moment ago. The architect's voice returned. Trial 1. Approach the gate. Only those who understand the cost of survival may pass. Weapons cycled to life across the Resolute's hull. Idris slammed a hand on his console. Permission to fire, Commander. That thing screams ambush. Kael considered. Every instinct told him the same. Yet logic whispered otherwise. A crucible wasn't designed to be destroyed, it was designed to be endured. Hold fire, Kael ordered. Mara shot him a glance. If you're wrong, then we die fast instead of slow. He raised his voice for the crew. Bring us in. The ship descended toward the structure. As they drew closer, the spires unfolded like a flower of knives, revealing a maw large enough to swallow the dreadnought whole. Lights flared inside, pulsing with a rhythm disturbingly close to a heartbeat. Energy readings spiking, Mara warned. It's pulling us in. Engines to full reverse, Arlen shouted. The thrusters roared, but the ship continued forward. Not dragged, summoned. Kael's jaw clenched. Steady. If this is their test, fighting it won't matter. We play their game until we can break it. ### inside the gate. The maw swallowed them. Darkness closed in, then burst into light. The crew shielded their eyes as the void gave way to something impossible, a vast artificial chamber, big enough to hold moons, lined with machinery older than human history. Idris muttered, voice barely audible. This isn't a test. It's a tomb. The architect's voice filled the chamber, vibrating through the hull. One of you must be chosen. Survival demands sacrifice. A life freely given will allow passage. Refuse, and all perish. The bridge went silent. Mara's eyes burned with fury. They want us to kill one of our own. Not kill, Kael corrected, his voice low but steady. Volunteer. Idris stood immediately. I'll do it. No, Mara snapped. Don't be a fool. Why not? Idris shot back, forcing a grin that faltered at the edges. I've cheated death more times than I should have. Maybe it's time I pay up. Kael held up a hand. No one moves. He turned slowly, meeting each of their gazes. They want us divided. They want desperation. We don't give them what they want. Arlen whispered. Commander, what if it's not a bluff? Kael's stare hardened. Then we prove there's always another way. ###cliffhanger. The chamber lights dimmed. The machinery stirred, massive conduits glowing as energy surged. The voice deepened, resonant and final. Last chance. Choose your sacrifice. On the bridge, hearts pounded. Sweat beaded. The rift seemed to press closer, suffocating. Kael stepped forward, placing himself at the center of the deck. His voice cut through the tension like steel on stone. We don't choose. You hear me? He glared at the unseen architects. Humanity doesn't bargain with tyrants. We carve our own exits. The chamber rumbled, as if the rift itself bristled. Panels split open along the walls, revealing weapons, vast cannons charging with blinding light, aimed directly at the Resolute. Mara whispered, voice trembling but fierce. Commander, what now? Kael bared his teeth in a wolf's grin. Now? Now we remind them what happens when you corner humans. The first cannon fired. The cannon blast struck like a star igniting at point-blank range. Shields screamed under the impact, arcs of electricity tearing across the Resolute's hull. Consoles sparked, smoke filled the bridge, but the dreadnought held. Humanity had been built on surviving the impossible. Shields at 60%! Mara shouted, fighting to stabilize the systems. Another cannon flared to life, the chamber's walls alive with alien fury. Kael's hand slammed against the armrest of his command chair. Idris! Target those cannons! Don't wait for permission, tear their teeth out! Idris grinned through blood on his lips. Now you're talking. Fingers flew across his console, and the Resolute's guns thundered. Plasma bolts ripped through the chamber, slamming into the spires housing the cannons. One exploded in a blinding chain of fire, debris raining down like shrapnel. Arlen's voice cracked through the chaos. 3 more charging! Commander, we can't trade blows forever. Kael stood, his silhouette framed by the burning displays. Then we don't trade. We take the fight to them. ### the breakthrough. The Resolute roared forward, engines shrieking under Kael's order. The dreadnought plunged deeper into the chamber, weaving through storms of alien fire. Cannons lit the dark like false suns, their beams carving gouges through steel and void alike. Bring us under their line of fire, Kael commanded. Mara turned, incredulous. That's suicide. It's survival, Kael shot back. They expect us to play by their rules. So we break them. The ship dove low, skimming the chamber's floor as beams sliced overhead. The cannons, designed to punish hesitation, struggled to adjust. Idris exploited every opening, firing salvos that shredded their targeting arrays. 2 down! Idris yelled, laughter bubbling through the smoke. Who's next? The chamber groaned, the entire structure trembling as if the rift itself was angry. Energy surged through conduits lining the walls, converging toward the heart of the chamber. Arlen's eyes widened. They're powering something bigger, something central. Kael's gaze followed the streams of light. At the chamber's core, a colossal sphere of machinery pulsed with unnatural rhythm. The architect's voice reverberated once more. You refuse sacrifice. Then you will be sacrificed together. The sphere began to open, revealing an engine of annihilation. ### humanity's gambit. Kael turned sharply. Options now. Mara scanned the readings. That core is building energy beyond anything I've seen. If it discharges, there won't even be atoms left of us. Can we stop it? Not conventionally. Our weapons won't punch deep enough before it fires. Arlen's voice was thin, almost breaking. But if we overload our own reactor, force a breach, it might destabilize their core long enough to collapse it. Silence struck the bridge. Everyone understood. Overloading their reactor wasn't a tactic. It was a death sentence. Idris broke the silence first. Hell of a plan, Arlen. One problem, you just described blowing ourselves to dust. Arlen's face twisted in anguish. Better dust than erased from history. Mara looked to Kael. Commander? Kael's expression was stone. He knew what had to be done, but humanity's story had never been about quiet self-destruction. It was about spitting in the face of oblivion and demanding the universe remember. No reactor suicide, Kael said finally. We don't die here. We win here. ## defiance. The crew stared, desperate for a miracle. Kael gave it to them. We turn the reactor surge into a weapon, but not by blowing ourselves up. We channel it through the main guns. One shot. Everything we've got. If the architects want proof of survival, let's show them how humans define it. Mara's eyes widened. That's insane. The conduits weren't built to handle that load. They'll melt. Kael leaned in, voice low but thunderous in conviction. Then we melt them. We melt everything. For a moment, silence. Then Idris grinned. Damn, Commander. I love how your brain works. Arlen hesitated, then nodded, hands already moving. I can rig it. No guarantees how long the ship holds after, but it'll fire. Kael turned to his crew, his voice a growl that became a roar. Listen to me. This is our stand. Every other species turned away because they feared failure. Not us. Humanity doesn't retreat. Humanity doesn't beg. We fight until the void itself remembers our names. So load that shot. Make it count. And let the architects choke on our defiance. The bridge erupted, not in fear, but in resolve. ## the final shot. Power surged through the ship. Lights flickered, panels cracked, conduits glowed white-hot as energy funneled into the main cannon. The hum became a roar, the roar became a scream. Target locked! Idris shouted, sweat dripping from his brow. The core ahead pulsed brighter, seconds from discharge. Fire! Kael roared. The cannon erupted, a blinding lance of energy tearing through the chamber. The shot carried the fury of a species that had clawed its way from caves to stars, that had endured extinction 1,000 times and spat back. It struck the alien core dead center. The chamber convulsed. Energy cascaded backward, arcs ripping through machinery, detonations chaining like thunder across eternity. The architect's voice rose in fury, then fractured into static. The rift screamed. ## aftermath. The chamber collapsed in on itself, spires shattering, conduits exploding, gravity twisting violently. The Resolute was hurled end over end, systems failing, hull groaning as though ready to tear apart. Engines offline! Mara shouted. Hold her together! Kael barked. Through the viewport, the rift's horizon split open. Light poured through, real light, stars glimmering beyond. The crucible was breaking. Arlen's hands blurred over the controls. If we ride the collapse, we can slingshot out! Do it! Kael ordered. The ship roared as what little remained of its engines spat fire. Gravity surged, then inverted, then spat them forward like an arrow loosed from the bowstring of gods. With a final shudder, the Resolute burst free of the rift. Stars burned bright and clear, the void beyond familiar again. The crew exhaled in disbelief. ## resolution. Silence filled the bridge, broken only by the hiss of sparking panels. Then Idris leaned back, laughter bubbling up like madness. We lived! Holy hell, we actually lived! Mara slumped in her chair, a weary smile tugging at her lips. Not sure if I want to strangle you or thank you, Commander. Kael remained standing, eyes fixed on the stars. The rift behind them still churned, but its growth was halted, its hunger silenced, for now. Arlen's voice trembled. If they were the architects, what did we just prove to them? Kael finally spoke, voice quiet but carrying iron. That humanity doesn't pass tests. We rewrite them. Hashtag epilogue cliffhanger. As the crew settled, the comms crackled again. A new voice, calm, chilling, undeniably alien, slid through the static. You survived. Impressive. But survival was only the first measure. The true trial has yet to begin. The bridge went silent. Every eye turned to Kael. He straightened, scars illuminated by the glow of ruined consoles, and answered with the same defiance that had carried them through the rift. Then bring it. Humanity doesn't back down. The stars beyond shimmered, shifting, as though something immense was stirring. And Kael smiled like a man who had already decided the outcome.